सभी को, आप लोगों को सभी को बधाई है इस चीज के लिए। प्लीज मैम स्टार्ट।
Thank you, sir. Very good afternoon to all of you. And we are meeting after, I think, 2-3 days gap. And by luck, I can say the other day I was discussing few theories on development. So I was saying that if you get a chance to read Kohlberg's theory of development, and see, today I'm here with you all to discuss the developmental theories as well as the disabilities. So I'll be discussing Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Then I'll shift my focus to moral development theory given by Kohlberg, of course criticized by Carol Gilligan, and few discussion portions on school education, like what are the three important 3 R's, like you can say. And then I will be talking about the learning disability and a few disorders related to that disability only. So coming back to Jean Piaget, right? Jean. Piaget is spelled out as Piaget. Jean Piaget. So in 1936, his theory of cognitive development, it explained how a child constructs a mental model. I'm taking the lifespan block 2 right now. We don't need to discuss page number, please. I'm not reading this material from your the study material provided to you. So it's my humble request that you focus on what I am talking right now. So this cognitive development, which explains that how the child constructs a mental model of the world, because he disagreed with the idea that intelligence was a fixed trait, जो कि personality theorist ने discussion में बताया था कि certain traits are responsible for a person or a child to act like that. Therefore, Piaget, he regarded cognitive development as a process which occurs due to biological maturation and the interaction with the environment. So Piaget was actually employed at the Binet Institute. Binet spelling B-I-N-E-T. It's not called Binet. It's T is silent. Binet Institute in the 1920. And he was given a job there to develop some English intelligence test. So he became intrigued with the reasons children gave for their wrong answers. And he realized that children also have certain kind of logical thinking. So he believed that those incorrect answers given by children during the development of those English intelligence test, so they reveal some kind of important differences between the thinking of adults and the children. No matter that those were the incorrect answers, but they had some kind of logic. So he was the first psychologist in 1936 to make a systematic study of cognitive development. His contributions generally include a stage theory of child cognitive development, then some detailed observational studies of cognition in children, and a series of simple but certain tests to reveal different cognitive abilities. So what Piaget wanted to do was not to measure how well children could count, spell, or solve the problems as a way of grading their IQ. He was not, had this thing in his mind that he has to calculate the IQ, but he was more or less interested in the way in which each fundamental concept, like the very idea of the number, time, quantity, justice, and so on emerged. Like, how do children get to know, okay, this is love, loyalty, honesty, certain abstract concepts. So before Piaget's work, I want to tell you that the common assumption in psychology was that children are merely less competent thinkers than adults. हम यही सोचते हैं ना कि once you reach that adulthood, only then you have that capacity to develop abstract thinking level. And Piaget showed that young children think in strikingly different ways. Even they have that logic. So this is why he wanted to elaborate his stage theory of development. So Piaget believed that children are born with a very basic mental structure, which is genetically inherited and evolved, and on which all subsequent learning and knowledge are based. So what I'm talking about is the schemas actually. So now his three basic components to Piaget's cognitive theory, that's what I'm talking right now. The first basic component was schemas, building blocks of knowledge. Second was the adaptation processes that enable the transition from one stage to another. Let's suppose if there are 4 stages in Piaget's development, how shall we shift from one stage of development to another?
मैम 1 मिनट के लिए रोक सकता हूँ?
Yes, sir.
हाँ, शिल्पा मिश्रा, मैं पहले भी आपको आग्रह कर चुका हूँ कि आप प्रेजेंटेशन स्टॉप करें। आपकी प्रेजेंटिंग बार बार ऑन है, या तो आप प्रेजेंटिंग के थ्रू ज्वाइन करते हैं, वो गलत है। आप सिंपल रूप से ज्वाइन करें, तब आपका ये दिखाई नहीं देगा। प्लीज आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है, नहीं तो फिर मैं आपको रिमूव करने के बाद फिर मैं आपको एक्सेप्ट भी नहीं करूंगा। लेकिन आप एक विद्यार्थी हैं, तो मैं चाहता हूं कि आप अच्छी तरीके से सुने। ठीक है मैम, कंटिन्यू प्लीज।
Thank you, sir. So I was talking about the 3 basic components to Piaget's cognitive theory. The first was schemas. I have been talking about this word time and again. These are the building blocks of knowledge. And the second was the adaptation process, that how do we get to know that now is the transition time and we have to shift from one stage to another, or maybe I have developed those capacities or capabilities that I have to shift from first sensory motor stage, let's suppose, to pre-operational stage. So for the matter of fact, transition is done through equilibrium, assimilation, and accommodation. And the third component was the stages of cognitive development. And these are sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operational. I'm going to repeat the name of the stages again. First, sensory motor. Second, pre-operational. Third, concrete operational. And fourth, formal operational. So to begin with, let's discuss what are schemas. So for example, imagine what it would be like if you do not have a mental model of your world. It would mean that you would not be able to make so much use of information from your past experience, or you can say to plan your future actions. So here, schemas, these are the building blocks, and they enable us to form a mental representation of the world. And Piaget gave a very technical definition for schemas as a cohesive, repeatable action sequence possessing components or possessing component actions that are tightly interconnected and governed by a core meaning. And if in simple terms, if I tell you, these are the building blocks of intelligent behavior, I mean the way you organize your knowledge. Indeed, it's useful to think of schemas as the units of knowledge, each relating to one aspect of the world, including objects, actions, and theoretical concepts. Now, when Piaget talked about the development of a person's mental processes, he was referring to increases in the number and complexity of the schemata that a person has learned. So when a child's existing schemas, they are capable of explaining what it can perceive around, it is said to be in a state of equilibrium. That is a state of mental balance. So Piaget emphasized the importance of schemas in cognitive development and also described how they were developed or acquired. So here I would like to give you an example of schema because maybe at times the word itself is clear with the help of an example. So for example, a person might have a schema about buying a food in a restaurant, right? You want to buy a meal in a restaurant. So your schema is stored form of the pattern of behavior, which includes looking at a menu, ordering the food, eating it, and paying the bill. सब चीजें आ गई हैं आपके schema में. Now this is an example of a type of schema called a script. कि एक script है मेरे दिमाग में. So whenever you get into the restaurant, this particular schema is retrieved from your memory and applied to a situation that I have to look for the food that I want to order. Then you will be eating it and you will be paying the bill. Now the schemas Piaget described, they tend to be simpler than this actually. ये तो higher order की मैं बात कर रही थी. And especially those used by infants, because he believed that in every stage of development, infants, child, they are using certain kind of schemas. Now he described how as a child gets older, his or her schemas become more numerous and elaborate. So he believed that newborn babies, they have a small number of innate schemas. Obviously, they have something with them inherited, you can say. Even before they have any opportunity to experience the world, they have certain number of, maybe a small number of innate schemas. And these neonatal schemas, they are the cognitive structures underlying innate reflexes. ये जो हम schemas की बात कर रहे हैं, जो मैंने बोला अभी आपको कि they have certain small number of innate schemas, they are the underlying structures and they are lying under the innate reflexes. Reflexes, for example, babies, they have a sucking reflex, which is triggered by something touching the baby's lips. So this is not being like उनको सिखाया नहीं जाता है, उनकी इसी तरह से priming हुई होती है. A baby will suck a comforter or a person's finger. So Piaget, therefore, he assumed that a baby has a sucking schema. Now, if I talk about some other kind of a schema, that's a grasping schema. Grasping reflex की हम बात करते हैं ना, बच्चे के हाथ में कुछ भी आता है या बच्चे बेबी का जो पाम है वो कोई भी चीज को टच करता है तो वो अक्सर कोशिश करता है उसको पकड़ने के लिए. So this grasping reflex, which is elicited when something touches the palm of a baby's hand, in which a baby will turn its head towards something, which, touching its cheeks, they are innate. So the two processes which help us to adapt a new schema, like I have as a baby, I had the schema of grasping. Grasping कह लो या फिर आप shaking a rattle, right? So it can be a combination of two schemas like grasping and shaking. And something new is there in the environment which I have to adjust or adapt in my, this cognitive process. How will I do this? So the first thing is assimilation. Piaget viewed intellectual growth as a process of adaptation to the world. तो जैसे जैसे हम नई चीजों को, न्यू चीजें जो है उनको हम अडेप्ट करते हैं अपने अंदर, that's called as adjustment only, right? You have something else, you already have some things and you are taking up the new things, you are adjusting that, पुराने वाले को साथ लेके चल रहे हैं आप. So assimilation is using an existing schema to deal with a new object or situation. And accommodation is when the existing schema does not work and I have to change to deal with the new object or a situation. जो मेरे पास presently schema है, it's not working in that current situation. So either I have to change, adopt a new one so that I can deal with the new situation is called as accommodation. Then equilibration was the third component. I mean the process में ही जो involved था. Equilibrium was mental balance. So Piaget believed that cognitive development did not progress at a steady rate. There are leaps and bounds. और ऐसा भी नहीं है, I also want to comment here that every baby, right, or every infant will have a same developmental pattern. कि एक बच्चे ने अगर 2 साल में कोई चीज सीख ली है या उसके लिए 2 years जो है वही एक grasping time रखा हुआ है, तो every बच्चा is going to learn that thing in those 2 years only. No, it's not like that. But of course, Piaget believed until and unless the baby has not developed in the concerned stage, he or she will not walk to the next stage. So development at the fullest and then shifting to the next stage. So this equilibrium occurs when a child's schemas can deal with most new information through assimilation. However, an unpleasant state of disequilibrium occurs. But you find out a way जिसके साथ you can fit the existing schema. So equilibration is the force which drives the learning process, as we do not like to be frustrated. So what will we do? To relieve from that frustration, I will seek to restore my balance by mastering the new challenge, and that is called as accommodation. So once the new information is acquired, the process of assimilation with the new schema will continue until the next time we need to make an adjustment. So here there is an example that this example is for assimilation and accommodation, that there's a 2-year-old child. He sees a man who's bald on top of his head and has long frizzy hair on the sides. To his father's horror, toddler shouts like, "Oh my God, clown, there's a clown." So in this clown incident, the boy's father explained to his son that the man was not a clown, and that even though his hair was like a clown's, he was not wearing a funny costume and was not doing silly things to make people laugh. So this was the new information, right? Schema कि अगर ऐसा कुछ characteristics में हमें कोई दिखता है तो बच्चा was कि okay, he or she is a clown. But then his father tried to explain him कि this man is not a clown. Now with this new knowledge, the boy was able to change his schema of clown and make this idea fit better to a standard concept of clown. Assimilation था, then accommodation हुआ, and equilibration gain करा, the balance. Now Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development. First, as I said, sensory motor. So this ranges from birth to 18 to 24 months तक. Then after sensory motor, there's another stage that's called pre-operational stage. इसको हम toddlerhood भी बोलते हैं, जो कि 18 से 24 महीने से लेकर 7 years तक. It goes through early childhood actually. So 18 to 24 months to age 7. The third is the concrete operational stage, ranges from age 7 to 11 years. And the fourth is the formal operational stage, adolescence to adulthood tak. So although no stage can be missed out, one has to go from all the 4 stages, but there are individual differences in the rate at which children progress through these stages. And to some, they're like some individuals, they may never attain the later stages. ऐसा भी होता है at times. Now I'm going to highlight the characteristics of the sensory motor stage. Now this stage, there is a term called object permanence. So the main achievement is that only, object permanence. Knowing that an object still exists even if it is hidden. It requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object. The second stage, pre-operational. Now in this stage, young children, they can think about the things symbolically.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Ma'am?
Can you please? Hello?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, can you please repeat the sensory motor stage again?
Right, sure. I'll do that. So in sensory motor stage, the main achievement during this stage is object permanence. The belief that the child or the baby has that the object still exists there even if it is hidden. It requires the ability to form a mental representation of the object. So बच्चे के लिए चीज गुम नहीं है, मतलब अगर वो hidden भी है तो he believes this that वो अभी भी वहीं पे है, क्योंकि उसको ये abstract concepts अभी समझ नहीं आएंगे. Gradually उसके वो schemas develop होंगे. Now the second stage was the pre-operational stage. This is the stage where young children can think about the things symbolically. The ability to make one thing, a word, or an object stand for something else. But let me remind you, during this stage, the thinking of the baby is still egocentric. EGOCENTRIC. And the infant has difficulty taking the viewpoint of others. So the focus is self only during the pre-operational stage. Now the third stage, concrete operational stage. Now here in this stage, the child can work things, like they are going internally in their head rather than physically. ऐसा नहीं है कि physical world में या real world में ही चीजें आएंगी तो समझ आएंगी. Other than that, internally in his head, the things are going on. So you can say that this stage is marked by the beginning of logical or operational thought. So a sense of conservation is always here in this stage. And what is conservation? Like understanding that something stays the same in quantity even though its appearance changes. जैसे दो beakers हैं, एक flat है और एक vertical है. और अगर हम प्री ऑपरेशनल में चले जाते हैं तो अगर हम बेबी को उसमें जो अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर है डला हुआ दिखाएं तो शायद वो ज्यादा या कम समझेगा प्री ऑपरेशनल स्टेज में. लेकिन हियर द कंजर्वेशन कॉन्सेप्ट इज डेवलप्ड, सो ही विल understand that no matter the size or the shape of the beaker is different, the amount of water is the same. Now the formal operational stage, the last stage that begins at approximately age 11 and lasts into the adulthood. So इस time के दौरान जो बच्चे हैं, they develop the ability to think about the abstract concepts like love, hate, gratitude, respect, honesty. And they try to understand those concepts logically. They try to find out the logic. Now, apart from these four stages, Piaget also shared his idea about the moral development. And he believed that youth develop the morality of cooperation at the age of 10 years or older. So as youth developed a morality of cooperation, they realized that in order to create a cooperative society, people must work together to decide what is acceptable and what is not. He also believed that youth at the age of 10 or so, they begin to understand that morals, they represent social agreements between people, and therefore they are to promote the common good actually. So they also begin to understand that the difference between the right and wrong is not an absolute, but instead must take into account changing variables such as context, motivation, abilities, and intentions. Like as I said, कि हो सकता है जो आपके लिए सही है या आपके लिए सही नहीं है, वो शायद अगर ये हम मॉरल डेवलपमेंट की बात कर रहे हैं तो बच्चा शायद इस एज में आके अंडरस्टैंड करता है कि ऐसा नहीं है कि ब्लैक और व्हाइट, देयर इज अ थिन शेड ऑफ ग्रे ऑल्सो. तो कभी कभार हमें वो शेड्स ऑफ ग्रे में भी सोचने की जरूरत पड़ती है. Now, if this was the view of Piaget for this moral development, let's see what Kohlberg has to tell us about the moral theory of development. So his full name was Lawrence Kohlberg, Lawrence, Lawrence Kohlberg, Kohlberg. Now, Kohlberg's theory of moral development states that we progress through 3 levels of moral thinking, and that actually build on our cognitive development. And at the same time, I also want to tell you here that the 3rd level, जो post conventional level है, बहुत सारे लोग उस post conventional तक तो पहुंच ही नहीं पाते हैं, उस confusion में ही रह जाते हैं. Very difficult to reach that post conventional level, जो कि हम आगे discuss करेंगे. So Kohlberg believed that this moral development theory is based on the idea of moral dilemmas, DILEMMAS, moral dilemmas. And what are these moral dilemmas? Stories that represent conflicting ideas about 2 moral values. And the best known moral dilemma, here I want to quote, is the Haynes dilemma, H-E-I-N-Z. The best known moral dilemma that was created by Kohlberg is the Haynes dilemma, H-E-I-N-Z. Now, this dilemma discusses the idea of obeying the law versus saving a life. कि कभी कभार हमें लॉ को थोड़ा सा अपने साइड पे करके अगर किसी की हमें जान बचानी है तो वो करें या ना करें. वो कहते हैं ना कि कभी किसी को बचाने के लिए हमें वो कुछ झूठ भी बोलना पड़े तो वो भगवान जी भी माफ कर देते हैं. आई डोंट नो कितना सच है, लेकिन कुछ लोग इसको बिलीव करते हैं कि ऐसा करना भी चाहिए. जरूरी नहीं है कि जो लॉज बने उन्हीं को हम हमेशा ओबे करें, बट ये बहुत कम होता है. Now, Kohlberg emphasized that it is the way an individual reasons about a dilemma that determines positive moral development. ऐसा नहीं है कि रूल ब्रेकर बनना है, बट वन वे और द अदर कहीं ना कहीं ये जो dilemmas के थ्रू जो इंडिविजुअल रीजन करता है, I mean, जो अपना वो एक रीजनिंग डेवलप करता है, उससे शायद उसकी मॉरल डेवलपमेंट ही आगे इनहैंस होती है. और so according to Kohlberg, an individual progresses from the capacity for pre-conventional morality, that is before age 9, To the capacity for conventional morality, ये मैं आपको 3 levels बता रही हूँ, 3 processes बता रही हूँ. पहला था pre-conventional morality, that is developed before age 9. Then to the capacity of conventional morality, that's between early adolescence. And then toward attaining post-conventional morality, जिसको आप as Piaget's formal operational thought भी कह सकते हो. And this post-conventional morality is like only a few will achieve it in a proper way. अब हर morality की जो ये stage है, each level of morality, ये pre-conventional, conventional and post-conventional, they contain 2 stages, जो further provides a basis for the moral development. So every stage, every level will have 2 stages in that. Now I'm going to discuss the first pre-conventional stage. One thing I want to tell you all, that this theory and the Piaget's theory is very important from exam point of view. So दोनों भी पूछे जा सकते हैं and अकेला Piaget या कोलबर्ग का theory भी आ सकता है. They are very, very important. Now level 1, pre-conventional. Now throughout the pre-conventional level, a child's sense of morality is externally controlled. कैसे? Parental figure, authority figures, they are going to control their child. Parents, teachers, and the child accept and believe the rules of those authority figures. जो मम्मा ने बोला या पापा ने बोला वही सही है. ऐसा अक्सर आपको देखने को मिलता है. अगर आपके घर पे कोई छोटा बेबी होगा, अगर वो स्कूल में जाता है तो आप उसको बताते हैं कि मैथमेटिक्स में जैसे कुछ या इंग्लिश में कोई राइटिंग का एग्जाम्पल या वर्ड का या कुछ भी है कि ऐसे इसको करते हैं, तो बच्चा हमेशा ये बोलता है मेरी टीचर ने ऐसे सिखाया है. दोनों ही सही मेथड्स होते हैं, बट द फोकस इज माय टीचर has taught me in this way, I'm going to do this way only. या मेरे मम्मी पापा ने बोला ऐसे करना है तो I'm going to do this. So a child with pre-conventional morality has not yet internalized the society's conventions regarding what is right or wrong, but just focuses on the external consequences. Like what if I'm not going to obey the rules or whatever being asked by my mother? तो मुझे शायद वो स्टोर रूम में बंद कर देंगी. That's a punishment to me. And I don't want to be punished. So I'm going to obey my mom. So this level 1, pre-conventional, in this level, the stage 1 is obedience and punishment orientation. So stage 1, obedience and punishment orientation, it focuses on the child's desire to obey rules and avoid being punished. For example, an action is perceived as morally wrong because the perpetrator is being punished. So the worse the punishment for the act is, the more bad the act is perceived to be. तो मुझे बुरा नहीं बनना है. I want my parents' love, my teachers' love, so I'm going to obey. या अगर नहीं करूंगा तो punishment मिलेगी. The stage 2 is the instrumental orientation. अब मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि this instrumental orientation, even if you grow up psychologically or physically, still people are immature and they are stuck up in this instrumental orientation only. You know, when I felt this, when I was doing my doctorate, तो कभी कभार during our research work we used to go to different schools या colleges, and there we used to request the students that would you mind filling this form, this is for my academic purpose. And as my doctorate is in clinical psychology, so the first thing जो बच्चा पूछता था, या कोई अगर आप मैं बोलूँ academician की ही बात करूँ कि मेरा different sample था, तो मैंने कभी किसी को approach किया हो ऐसे कि would you mind filling out this questionnaire. So the first question was, what's in it for me? See, so limited interest in the need of others. मेरे लिए क्या है, पहले आप ये बताओ, मैं क्यों करूं? So this is the instrumental orientation, in which the right behavior is defined by whatever the individual believes to be in their best interest. Now, as a result, concern for others is not based on loyalty or intrinsic respect. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि I really have concern for you, so I want to help you out. You scratch my back, then I am going to scratch yours. That's it. ये mentality है. So like, example can be when a child is asked by his parents to do some kind of डेली चोर, कोई एक्टिविटी करने को बोला गया, तो बच्चा बोले कि मुझे क्या मिलेगा if I am going to clean my room or I'm going to do my homework, and parents, I'll give you an incentive, क्या would allow you to go and ride a bicycle or give him or her an allowance, anything जो बच्चे को अच्छा लगता हो. So I think unconditional नहीं है, conditional based है ये वाला. Level 2, conventional. Now, throughout the conventional level, a child's sense of morality is tied to personal and societal relationships. Very important. Children continue to accept the rules of the authority figures. अभी भी बच्चा जो मम्मी पापा कहेंगे या टीचर्स कहेंगे या जो भी मेंटोर या अथॉरिटी फिगर होगा उनकी बात मानेंगे. But this is now due to their belief that this is necessary to endure or to ensure positive relationships and societal order. So, again, good boy, nice girl orientation. बच्चों को तो छोटे होते से ही हम टैग्स देते हैं. So and so is a good boy. So he also understands why I'm a good boy because मैं सारे काम अच्छे से करता हूँ. So I am a good boy. What if I throw my tantrum or what if I ask mama or papa something beyond their reach, then I'm going to be a bad boy. Good boy, nice girl. So बच्चों को भी लगता है they want the approval of others and they act in ways जिससे वो disapproval avoid कर सके. And emphasis is placed on good behavior, being nice to others. Of course ये अच्छा है, but the orientation to some extent is like कि आप अच्छा करेंगे तभी, again conditional. कभी कुछ स्पिल हो गया, खाना अच्छे से नहीं खाया, ड्रेस पे गिरा दिया, होमवर्क अच्छे से नहीं करा, तो फिर मार भी पड़ेगी, तो फिर वो गुड बॉय से बैड बॉय बन जाएगा. Now here we have one more stage. First stage was good boy and nice girl orientation. The second is the law and order orientation. ये अभी मैं conventional stage ही पढ़ा रही हूँ, conventional level में second stage. Law and order orientation. Now here the child blindly accepts rules and convention because of their importance in maintaining a functioning society. So यहाँ पे क्या है? Rules are seen as being the same for everyone, and obeying rules by doing what one is supposed to do is seen as valuable and important. यहाँ पे क्या है कि जो moral reasoning है, it's beyond the need for individual approval, जो कि stage 3 में दिखाई गई थी. If one person violates a law, perhaps everyone would, thus there is an obligation. I mean, and a duty to uphold laws and rules. अब क्या है कि मैक्सिमम जो एक्टिव मेंबर्स होंगे सोसाइटी के ना, दे विल रिमेन एट स्टेज 4, जहां पे जो मोरालिटी है ये स्टिल डिक्टेटिंग फॉर्म में नजर आएगी बाय एन आउटसाइड फोर्स. खुद नहीं डिसीजन ले सकते आप, आपको बताया जाएगा ये सही है, ये गलत है, ये ऐसे ही फॉलो करना है. हमारी सोसाइटी अलाउ नहीं करती है, तो हम उसी को फॉलो करेंगे जो सोसाइटी अलाउ कर रही है. Now is the most interesting level, that's the level 3, post-conventional. Now here, this level is marked by a growing realization that individuals are separate entities from society, and that individuals may disobey rules inconsistent with their own principles. Right? So, moralist जो post conventional level reach करते हैं, they live by their own ethical principles. Principles that typically include such basic rights जैसे कि liberty, justice, and they view rules as useful but changeable mechanisms, not the rigid type of thinking. So nothing absolute. They can be changed. Now, because post-conventional individuals, they elevate their own moral evaluation of a situation over social conventions, their behavior, especially इस स्टेज में, ये कभी कभार प्री कन्वेंशनल के साथ भी कंफ्यूज कर लेते हैं कि जैसे प्री कन्वेंशनल में उस बच्चे को अपना ही दिख रहा होता है, ईगोसेंट्रिक था, तो यहाँ पे भी कई थियोरिस्ट ने ऐसे स्पेक्यूलेट किया है कि ये भी समवट उसकी जैसी लग रही है, बट ऐसा नहीं है. And then many theorists, they have viewed that बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे होंगे, they will never be able to reach this level of abstract moral reasoning. जैसे कि मैंने आपको अभी कहा कि कोई चीज अगर सामने वाले को ठीक लग रही है तो मुझे उस पर प्रॉब्लम नहीं होना चाहिए. अगर उसको अच्छा लग रहा है तो let him or her go for that. Now stage 5 in post-conventional, जिस स्टेज की हम बात करेंगे, social contract orientation. Social contract orientation. Now the world is viewed as holding different opinions, rights, and values. Such perspectives should be mutually respected as unique to each person or community. Then laws जो है, they are regarded as social contracts. Those that do not promote the general welfare should be changed when necessary to meet the greatest good. ऐसा नहीं है कि जो शुरू से बने हुए हैं laws उन्हीं को follow करें. अगर हमें लगता है कि कोई ज़्यादा effortful नहीं है, वो कहीं भी वो person को इन इंडिविजुअल या कलेक्टिविस्ट फॉर्म में हेल्प नहीं कर रहे हैं, सोसाइटी को आगे प्रमोट नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो हम उनमें चेंजेस भी लेके आ सकते हैं. And I think democratic government is theoretically based on this kind of orientation only, देखा जाए तो. Now stage 6 post-conventional में universal ethical principle orientation. I'm going to repeat it. Stage 6 in post-conventional is universal ethical principle orientation. Now this is based on abstract reasoning. Equality, dignity, respect, ऐसे ideas पे focus किया जाता है. People choose the ethical principles they want to follow. And if they violate those principles, they feel guilty. Now, in this way, the individual acts because it is morally right to do so, and not because he or she wants to avoid punishment. So it is in their best interest and is expected, legal or previously agreed upon, कह सकते हैं. So this is this stage, जो ये छठा stage है, right? It is difficult to identify individuals who consistently operate at this level. It's difficult. Now, one thing in this Kohlberg's theory of moral development is that his assertion was strictly restricted for men only, due to which he had his research assistant named Carol Gilligan, C-A-R-O-L, Carol Gilligan, G-I-L-L-I-G-A-N, Carol Gilligan. So she criticized him because of this narrow research using upper class men and boys, and therefore she argued that women are not deficient in their moral reasoning. ऐसा नहीं है. Instead, she proposed that males and females, they reason differently. How differently? Like girls, yeah, women, they're more focused on staying connected and trying their best to maintain interpersonal relationships. Now shifting our focus to this education, the relevance of education or reading, writing and arithmetic. So quickly I will discuss the 3 R's as tools with which a student can gain more knowledge in any of the subject. And it's important to be aware about these 3 R's, which are very important. I am done with the theory of this Piaget and Kohlberg. तो अब मैं थोड़ा एजुकेशन पर्सपेक्टिव पे आ रही हूँ क्योंकि आई हैव टू टेक यू टू दिस लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी जो कि स्पेशल एजुकेशन का एक टॉपिक है ये. So they say education has always gone beyond the basics of reading, writing and arithmetic, right? If a student can read and write, he or she can complete a research project and learn to type. ये सबको पता है. अब क्या है कि how can you help your children to learn these 3 R's of education and improve their life? So कुछ important educational basics हैं जो बच्चों को सिखाने बहुत जरूरी हैं, right? उनकी एक sense of involvement होनी चाहिए आप लोगों के साथ और आपकी भी होनी चाहिए उनके प्रति. जैसे कि read और आप read करें या बच्चों के साथ रात को बैठ के you try to read out anything that you like the best. Try to cook with your child. Right? Then encourage your child to use a dictionary so that he can spell the words properly and look up the meaning for those words. Then build something with your child, जहाँ के उसको लगे कि कुछ productive काम किया जा रहा है, like using a plan. Help your child to like set up a lemonade stand. कुछ ना कुछ ऐसे करते रहना चाहिए. Sell items, give current maybe give correct change to customers कि कितने बैलेंस में कितने पैसे वापस करने हैं या कुछ भी ऐसा. Now you can also include your child when writing a holiday or a birthday card. Again, there will be a sense of involvement. So इससे क्या होगा कि बच्चे को रीडिंग, राइटिंग और अरिथमेटिक के अलावा एक ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट एंड ग्रूमिंग जो है वो होगी. You can also, like when you are planning a trip or vacation, you can include your child in, calculating distances, mapping where you need to go, etc. अब अगर कोई बच्चे में कोई इस तरह से डेवलपमेंटल लैकनेस देखी जाती है, क्योंकि ये जो लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी है ये बहुत मुश्किल से आइडेंटिफाई किया गया हुआ है. एक वक्त था जब कहा जाता था कि मेंटली रिटार्डेड है बच्चा, एंड मेंटल रिटार्डेशन ये लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी से बिल्कुल डिफरेंट था. ऐसा नहीं था कि दे हैव IQ मे बी अबव एवरेज और एवरेज, बट पता नहीं लग रहा था कि हम इस चीज से बाहर कैसे निकले कि बच्चों को जो स्टिग्मेटाइजेशन दी जा रही है, स्पेशल स्कूल्स खोले जा रहे हैं और उनको तरह तरह के नाम दिए जा रहे थे. सो विद द एफर्ट्स ऑफ फ्यू डेवलपमेंटल थियोरिस्ट, this concept of learning disability came into existence. So this learning disability is a disability that affects a person's ability to process information. ऐसा नहीं है कि उन बच्चों में दिमाग नहीं होता है. They do possess some kind of average IQ. Now this disability, there are different type of disabilities. If you are interested in getting into it, there is a course, I think foundation course with this learning disability that you can do online only, अगर कोई special education में जाना चाहता है. So as I said, there are different kinds of learning disabilities, or I think there is a movie तारे ज़मीं पर जिसमें ये शायद उभर के उस वक्त आया था सामने. So dyslexia is the commonest form of all this learning disability, and ये language based disability है जिसमें person has trouble understanding words, sentences or paragraphs. Then we have dyscalculia as another disability, learning disability, and Dyscalculia is a lifelong learning disability that affects the ability to grasp and solve math concepts. So they have difficulty manipulating numbers in their head and then remembering the steps in formulas and equations. Then also there is a disability called as dysgraphia, a writing disability where people find it hard to form letters and write within a defined space. और ऐसे लोगों में उनकी handwriting जो होती है it's uneven and inconsistent. I mean legibly लिख नहीं सकते हैं. I mean लिख भी सकते हैं तो very slowly. Then dyspraxia, another disorder. It affects the development of motor skills. They have trouble planning and executing their fine motor task, like getting dressed up. They have problem in that. Now ADHD is another disorder that causes people to lose focus on tasks very easily. Attention deficit hyperactivity or hyperactive disorder. Now this has two main types, with the third being a combination of the two. वो क्या है? Hyperactive impulsive ADHD. Now this is distinguished by the person's excessive amount of activity, highly impulsive, lack of concentration, constant fidgeting, non-stop talking. They cannot even control their temper. Now, inattentive ADHD, they causes people to not put the needed attention into a required task. Now, this inattentive ADHD, जो बच्चे होते हैं, they struggle with paying attention to instruction. They are like daydreaming. They process the information slowly. बहुत जल्दी बोर हो जाना. Poorly organized, right? But I want to tell you here, this ADHD is not a learning disability actually, right? But you know, what if like you fidget a lot, non-stop talking, you cannot control your temper, so people tend to struggle with learning. And so is the reason that it's commonly linked up to other kind of learning disability problems. Now mental retardation, as I said कि किसी time पे DSM, Diagnostic Statistical Manual है जो psychiatrist use करते हैं जब वो diagnose करते हैं psychological disorder को. So they look up to the symptoms and signs and the duration, the time, the onset. इससे पहले कि वो किसी concerned person को उस criteria में fit करें कि so and so person is diagnosed having depression, PTSD or any other. So this mental retardation was the word जिसको पहले हम use करते थे. And with constant revisions of Diagnostic Statistical Manual, now it is called as intellectual disability. But Alternatively, हम कभी कभार इसको mental retardation बोलते हैं, कभी कभार हम इसको intellectual disability बोलते हैं. अगर हम professional grounds पे अगर उस DSM को follow करें तो we call it as intellectual disability. Now this disability or mental retardation is characterized by below average intelligence, 70 के भी नीचे, or mental ability or a lack of skills necessary for day-to-day living. Now, mental retardation, they comprises 5 general categories: borderline, mild, moderate, severe, and profound. Borderline, mild, moderate, severe, and profound. अब इन categories पे जो हम scores देखते हैं, उस हिसाब से हम actually इनको borderline, mild, moderate और severe, profound कहते हैं. And how do we get the scores? These scores are obtained through the use of age standardized test based on cognitive ability. So if we look into it कि mild retardation क्या है, moderate retardation क्या है, या severe or profound क्या है. So this, if I tell you this, the developmental characteristics related to these levels, in mild retardation, 75% to 90% of all cases of retardation occur. They're very slow in all the areas. They can acquire practical skills and can do some stuff like reading and so. Moderate retardation is 10% to 25% of all the cases of retardation. Right? There is some delay in their speech and some unusual physical signs भी देखने को मिलते हैं. And they can learn simple communication and they can learn in moderate retardation. Now, severe retardation. They have marked and obvious delays. They may even walk late. Zero communication skills. They have some understanding of speech and they show some kind of a response, but very little. And they have to be, they may be taught some daily routines or repetitive activities. They can be trained in. Now, the profound retardation. They have some kind of congenital abnormalities. Syndrome kind of thing. Chromosomal aberrations देखने को भी मिल जाती हैं. And they need close supervision. So I think I have finished with this block today. We have discussed developmental theories, the importance of education and beyond education and the difficulties in education levels, and
Hello.
then intellectual disability.
Hello.
Hello?
Ma'am, please repeat post-conventional level, please.
अच्छा जी, वेट कीजिए प्लीज. क्या जानना चाहते हैं पोस्ट कन्वेंशनल में?
मैम, जो 5th स्टेज है सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिचुएशन और यूनिवर्सल एथिकल प्रिंसिपल में,
हाँ जी,
वो दोनों रिपीट कर दीजिए, समझ नहीं लगा वो.
अच्छा. जो हमारा पोस्ट कन्वेंशनल का स्टेज 5 था, सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की तरह हम मानते हैं लॉज को इसमें. So the world जो है इसमें, it is viewed as holding different opinions, rights and values. ऐसा नहीं है कि सबने एक ही वैल्यू को चलाना है या एक ही ओपिनियन को सबने फॉलो करना है. और हम कोशिश क्या करते हैं इस स्टेज में कि आपसी सहमति से, मतलब कहीं ना कहीं we respect each other's value system. They are unique to each person or community, but still we respect. अगर कोई मुस्लिम है, अगर कोई हिंदू है, तो वो जिस तरह से भी अपनी रिलीजियस सेरेमनीज को प्रोसीड करता है, वी हैव रिस्पेक्ट फॉर दैट. ये नहीं कहेंगे कि हम आइडल वर्शिप करते हैं, वो नहीं करते हैं, या वो स्क्रिप्चर्स पढ़ते हैं तो वो ज्यादा अच्छे हैं या ठीक है. म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट होना जरूरी है. तो लॉज जो है दे आर रिगार्डेड एज सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स रादर दैन के रिजिड एडिक्ट्स हैं कि इनको हर हालत में फॉलो करना ही करना है. अब वो लोग, those that do not promote the general welfare, अब हम कोशिश क्या करते हैं सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ओरिएंटेशन में कि जहां मुझे लगेगा कुछ लॉज हैं, वो मुझे लगता है कि कहीं पे भी हमारा जनरल वेलफेयर प्रमोट नहीं कर रहे हैं. सो इस स्टेज में हम उसको ना भी फॉलो करें तो चलेगा. मतलब हमें वो डर नहीं होता है जो मुझे प्री कन्वेंशनल में था कि या मिड कन्वेंशनल में था कि अगर नहीं करूंगी तो मैं अथॉरिटी फिगर्स के आगे डिसअप्रूव्ड हो जाऊंगी. इफ आई डोंट फील लाइक, आई विल नॉट गो फॉर इट. दैट्स ओके. अब जैसे हम किसी को जबरदस्ती बोलें कि जी आप हिंदू हो तो आप मंदिर में ही जाओगे, वो कहीं नहीं लिखा है. बट स्टिल अभी भी कुछ हैं ऐसे रिजिड जो कहेंगे जी नहीं हम मंदिर में ही जाएंगे, और ऐसे भी हैं जो दूसरे रिलीजन से हैं, वो मंदिर भी आते हैं या गुरुद्वारे भी जाते हैं, ये मेरी अपनी पर्सनल चॉइस है। अब इसमें क्या है कि तभी मैंने आपको कहा था कि ये जो स्टेज है ये एक तरह के डेमोक्रेटिक गवर्नमेंट को रिफ्लेक्ट भी करती है, सोशल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ओरिएंटेशन। जो स्टेज 6 थी ना, दिस वाज बेस्ड ऑन एब्स्ट्रैक्ट रीजनिंग। इसमें मैं इक्वालिटी, डिग्निटी और रिस्पेक्ट की बात कर रही हूं, और जितने भी लॉज होंगे वो तब तक वैलिड होंगे जब तक दे आर ग्राउंडेड इन जस्टिस।
जी मैम।
Now here people, they want to follow or they choose the ethical principles that they want to follow. And if they violate, अगर वो जो फॉलो कर रहे हैं उनको वायलेट करते तो उनको गिल्ट होता। क्यों? क्योंकि मैंने इंट्रिंसिकली वो रूल, वो वैल्यू, वो स्टैंडर्ड, वो बिलीफ पैटर्न को अपनाया है, किसी के कहने से नहीं मैंने कोई चीज को एक्सेप्ट किया है, मेरी विश थी, सो आई वेंट फॉर इट। Like it
जी
is
मैम।
morally right to do so, so I am doing it. जहां मुझे लगता है ये सही नहीं है, I will not do it.
थैंक यू
So
मैम।
this
थैंक
stage was named as Universal Ethical Principle Orientation.
नाउ क्लियर मैम, क्लियर मैम, थैंक यू।
ठीक है जी, ठीक है।
Ma'am, hi, my name is Hari. I have a query which I've put it in the chat box. I'll just read for that. Now, the query is something very simple. Let's say if a child has got a hatred towards something, can that be a permanent? So, for example, if a child is physically
Yes, I can
punished,
read your query. Can
yeah.
fear alter or damage the schema and making it permanent, thereby developing a dislike and hatred towards it? Yes, right? Because kahin na kahin learning plays an important role. Now I'm being reinforced negatively for certain kind of a behavior or my action, so definitely that will affect my schema. But Hari, at the same time I have to maintain a mental balance. So to maintain that equilibrium, either way चलेंगे, या तो मैं वो नेगेटिव पैटर्न ही अडेप्ट कर लूंगी, या मैं उस फ्रस्ट्रेशन से बाहर निकलने के लिए आई विल वर्क आउट सम मोर पॉजिटिव थिंग्स सो दैट आई कैन हैव माय पीस और माय सेंस ऑफ बैलेंस। यहाँ पे you have given an example, a child if punished physically handled for not doing mathematics problem properly, thereby he develops a fear and then develops a permanent hatred towards that subject. Yes, this is something like compensation and overcompensation process हम इसमें चला सकते हैं, but then when the child is punished or physically handled na, so this behavior can be deconditioned also. Along with some positive reinforcing conditions, we can decondition the fear of a child towards the mathematics. Of course that will bring a change, but then अगर वो change लेके आ रहा है तो हम उसको decondition भी कर सकते हैं. Now this is from the behavioristic viewpoint I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ma'am, one more query which is lingering at the back of my mind. Can schemas be referred to a practice or by just to or he can develop it or rebuild a schema by a practice or by observing someone else?
Yes. See, we have innate schemas to some extent only, right? Then when we are interacting in the environment, we can build new schemas. Definitely we can. I think in my first or the second slide, I was discussing this only, that as an infant, I'll have few innate schemas. But then when I'm coming in contact with the environment and the people around me, definitely I can have new schemas, and I can even eliminate the ones which are not fulfilling any purpose.
But what is the age limit for that? Is there any age limit that we built new schemas?
मैम लर्निंग तो आई थिंक एवर लॉन्ग प्रोसेस है ना, तो
So there is
शीमास
no
के लिए कोई
as such.
पर्टिकुलर एज नहीं हो सकता है।
Okay.
या
Okay, ma'am, I have a last of my query. Let's say, the buying the example out of the buying at an example or ordering a food at a restaurant that you have given it in the start. in development of a schema. Can that be something like this related to a part pertaining to an intelligence? That
Can
as
you
a
just
kid,
write down your question, Hari, because your voice is not audible. Can you just post the question here?
yeah, and I'll put
Yeah,
it right.
ma'am, I have a doubt.
This is, ma'am,
That
we are covering 002 part 2, no?
yeah, ma'am, I have a doubt.
हाँ जी पूछिए.
हेलो. हाँ मैम,
हाँ जी, हाँ
आपने
जी.
जो लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटीज बताया, ADHD है या डिसलेक्सिया है या जो भी, मतलब मैथ्स का जो डिफिकल्टी है, सो अगर हम लोगों को कोई सॉल्यूशन पूछता है एज अ काउंसलर, एज अ साइकोलॉजिस्ट, तो उसके ऊपर सॉल्यूशंस हमारे नोट्स में है क्या, या आर यू गोइंग टू टीच?
मैम अगर तो एज अ साइकोलॉजिस्ट वैसे आपको कोई भी नहीं पूछेगा, क्योंकि जो डिसेबिलिटी से बच्चा गुजर रहा होता है उनको हम हमेशा स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स को रेफर करते हैं, क्योंकि दे हैव डेवलप्ड दोज स्किल्स to handle kids with disabilities. But of course अगर as a psychologist के point of view से मैं बोलूँ तो then, or a counselor, then we can ask the parent to take that child for a therapy session. So वो डिपेंड करता है कि वो किस तरह की डिसेबिलिटी है और वो थेरेपी कितना बेनिफिट करेगी, क्योंकि दिस एरिया इज डीलिंग विद द स्पेशल एजुकेशन. सो अदरवाइज देखा जाए तो साइकोलॉजी का स्पेशल एजुकेशन एक, कह सकते हैं आप, साइड ब्रांच है, फुल फ्लेज नहीं है. तो अगर साइकोलॉजिस्ट, अगर आप मेरे से पूछते हैं तो मैं पहली बार ये बोलूंगी कि आप उनका बच्चे का IQ टेस्ट करें. स्क्रीनिंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, चाहे वो मिनी स्टेटस एग्जामिनेशन हो या प्रॉपर एग्जामिनेशन हो. देन एज अ साइकोलॉजिस्ट मैं बच्चे को विस्क के लिए रेफर कर सकती हूँ. नाउ विस्क इज द वेट्सलर इंटेलिजेंस स्केल फॉर चिल्ड्रन. सो उसमें अगर कहीं मुझे ऐसे लग रहा है कि बच्चे की जो नॉर्मल डेवलपमेंट है वो मुझे डिस्टर्ब्ड आ रही है, देन आफ्टर स्क्रीनिंग आई कैन रेफर दैट किड टू अ स्पेशल एजुकेटर, कि वो फिर लुक इन करेगा कि कौन से डिटेल्ड एरियाज हैं जहां पे बच्चे को दिक्कत आ रही है. वो डिसलेक्सिया है, डिसकैल्कुलिया है, डिसग्राफिया है, डिस्प्रैक्सिया है. सो वो फिर हम आगे रेफर कर देते हैं स्पेशल एजुकेटर्स को.
तो वो हम लोग हैंडल नहीं कर सकते.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, we
Hanji.
don't handle it. Just now, madam said we don't handle it.
We can handle only the diagnosis part, the screening part as a psychologist, giving them the test. Assessment कर सकते हैं हम उनकी, right? हाँ जी.
Okay. Ma'am, I have a question. What factors causes mental retardation? It's genetic, environmental factor.
Genetic, of course genetic. आप किस बैकग्राउंड से हैं? Let me know.
Ma'am, I have
आपका फील्ड क्या है?
started psychology, ma'am.
नहीं, आपका प्रीवियस बैकग्राउंड क्या है मैम?
Ma'am, actually I've done graduation. Now I've recently started studying psychology.
देखिए, मेंटल रिटार्डेशन के बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स हैं. जेनेटिक रोल प्ले करता है. अलोंग विद दैट, अगर मैं आपको बोलूं कि ब्रेन एनामली कहीं देखी जा रही है, बायोकेमिकल प्रोसेसेस में कहीं डिस्टर्बेंस नजर आ रहा है, न्यूरो इमेजिंग कहीं डिस्टर्ब्ड है, एनलार्ज्ड वेंट्रिकल्स हैं, कॉर्टेक्स वॉल्यूमेट्रिक बढ़ा हुआ है, तो ये सब फैक्टर्स हैं. बट एट द सेम टाइम साइकोलॉजिकल फैक्टर, कोई ट्रॉमा, कोई कुछ ऐसा इवेंट, कोई ऐसा इंसिडेंट है, तो blend of so many factors. But of course to some extent this nature nurture साथ में चलता है. जब हम causes पढ़ते हैं ना abnormal behavior के, तो उसमें biological factors का अपना रोल है, psychological factors का अपना रोल है, socio cultural का अपना रोल है.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Hari has posted a question. In an example of ordering a restaurant, can the entire process be a part of intelligence development, thereby making it a permanent positive schema? See, Hari, what I want to tell you is that if I am going to talk about intelligence development, तो intelligence development होता कैसे है? Again, the information processing, right? We have some mental representations. Hari, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Indeed.
Yeah. So You are saying that can we take this entire process to be a part of the intelligence development, but then
Correct.
again this intelligence development is dealing with the cognitive aspect only, right? So when we are saying intelligence or the cognitive aspect, I am talking about the higher mental processes where my thinking, my attention, my perception, my reasoning, inductive, deductive reasoning, everything is involved. So one way or the other, I am building my schema only. What I mean to say is, every time you don't have to press a button in your mind that okay, now let me know what do I have to do, I have entered the restaurant. So वो mental schemas इतने accustomed हो जाते हैं कि it becomes like a normal thing. तो हमारी जो organization है अपनी planning और execution of skills की, वो schemas के through ही होती है. अगर इसको मैं बहुत छोटा एग्जाम्पल ले लूं, an apple यार, या फिर a sun. So इंटेलिजेंस जो है वो भी कहीं ना कहीं शीमा का ही सपोर्ट ले रही है. तभी आपको पता लग रहा है, तभी अगर आपको कहीं कहता है कि इसका आईक्यू इस पर्सन से ज्यादा है, तो शायद आपकी जो इंफॉर्मेशन प्रोसेसिंग है चीजों को लेकर वो थोड़ी फास्टर हो सकती है दूसरे से. तो हो सकता है आपके अंदर एब्स्ट्रैक्ट शीमास के कॉन्सेप्ट बहुत अच्छे से डेवलप हुए हैं, जिसको हम कॉन्सेप्ट फॉर्मेशन कहते हैं, जिसके कारण आपका आईक्यू बेटर है या दूसरे वाले का बेटर है. तो ये कहना thereby making it a permanent positive शीमा और इंटेलिजेंस डेवलपमेंट ये कोरिलेटेड टर्म्स ही हैं हरी, ये अलग अलग नहीं है.
Okay, understood. Madam, I have one last query from my end in terms of the stages of cognitive development जहाँ पे हमारा sensory motors involved है. So
sorry, can you repeat it?
In terms of the stages of cognitive development at the from the gene files, the sensory motors that we're talking about, can it is starting at the age of 80 to 24 months, but when we actually
ना birth to birth sensory motor birth से लेके 18 से 24 महीने तक.
Okay, understood. Okay, now if I go back to our the epics, the like Mahabharata, जहाँ पे it is clearly stated that when Subhadra was carrying her son Abhimanyu, Abhimanyu learned the Padma View from Arjuna when Krishna is teaching Arjuna. So what this category is a which this is not a part of a sensory, it is pre-birth. Where does this actually cater into?
See, मैं इसका आंसर इस तरह से दे सकती हूँ कि अगर आपने मेरे ध्यान से लेक्चर को सुना हो तो एक आधे स्टेज पे मैंने आपको ये कहा था कि कुछ रिफ्लेक्सेस जो बच्चे में इनेट होते हैं, कुछ चीजें इनेट मैंने बोली थी, इनेट वर्ड मैंने यूज किया था. तो ऑफ कोर्स वी कैन नॉट इग्नोर द रोल ऑफ प्रीनेटल डेवलपमेंट. अब ये आप इसको थोड़ा इधर लेके आ रहे हैं, विच दिस एरिया आई एम नॉट सो गुड. मैंने ये इतना नहीं पढ़ा हुआ जो आप महाभारता की बात कर रहे हैं, बट मैं इसको ऐसे जरूर आपको बता सकती हूँ कि कुछ चीजें हमारे अंदर इनेट हैं और प्रीनेटल या पोस्टनेटल, अगर दोनों चीजों का इफेक्ट बेबी पे होता है, तो अगर वो वूम में भी है तो कहीं ना कहीं जो वो उस दौरान 9 मंथ्स के लिए वो अपनी मदर के अंदर कुछ चीजें अगर वो खा रहा है, पी रहा है, एलिमिनेट कर रहा है, तो इन सब चीजों का भी इफेक्ट होता होगा. ये क्या है भावना गुप्ता? कैन आई आस्क यू अ क्वेश्चन फ्रॉम सोशल साइकोलॉजी? कैन वी टेक दिस क्वेश्चंस फॉर लाइक कैन वी कीप दिस क्वेश्चंस फॉर नेक्स्ट सेशन?
मैं ऑफिस तो बंद है अपना, एक मिनट होल्ड रखो.
yes ma'am that's fine.
होल्ड रखना मैम. थैंक यू. अब समय की वचनबद्धता को नजर रखते हुए देखिए समय काफी हो गया है, तो जो पर्सन है वो अगले, क्योंकि अभी हमारे साथ मैम अगले 2-3 दिन हैं, तो वो शेष हम उनके सामने रखेंगे.
हरी, आई होप हरी टू सम एक्सटेंट मैंने आपको कुछ कहीं ना कहीं लैंड अप करवाया है आंसर्स देकर.
मैम
ये कौन सा चैप्टर कराया है आपने?
मैंने आपको ब्लॉक 2 करवाया है. अगर आप पहले ज्वाइन करते टाइमली तो मैंने वेरी फर्स्ट आई थिंक मैंने पूरा 3 बजे यहाँ लिख दिया था. लाइफ स्पैन डेवलपमेंट ब्लॉक 2 डिस्कशन ऑन थ्योरीज ऑफ डेवलपमेंट एंड डिसेबिलिटीज.
थैंक यू सो मच, आपने इतनी अच्छी तरह से कराया है. एक्सीलेंटली डन. थैंक यू सो मच.
थैंक यू सो मच.